Groups and group sets, collaboration and group work in Canvas. This video will cover the differences between groups and group sets, how to create them, and their main uses, including using groups for collaborative workspaces, group assignments, and group discussions. Before we begin, I do want to point out that Canvas differentiates between groups and sections. Groups are collaborative workspaces. Sections allow for administrative delineation of students, including differentiated due dates on assignments and filtering in SpeedGrader and the gradebook. This video focuses on Canvas's groups and collaboration features. In Canvas, a group is a collection of students that can collaborate on assignments, discussions, and more. In this example, Group A consists of students Sarah, Jim, and Tyler. Group B consists of Joe, Frank, and Hannah. As the instructor, I can set up an assignment such that students submit in groups. Group A submits one paper, Group B submits another. But over the course of the quarter, students may end up belonging to multiple groups for different activities. For example, students may be in one group for a group project and in another group for a weekly discussion. Sarah is in Group A for the group project, but in Group 2 for the discussion groups. This is where group sets come in. A group set is a collection of groups, and they allow you to indicate which groups the specific Canvas activity should recognize. So for example, the group project group set contains groups A and B and can be used to set up a group assignment. Sarah is in Group A alongside Jim and Tyler. The discussions group set can be used for group discussions, where Sarah is collaborating with Jill and Frank. Students can be in one group per group set, but a course can have as many group sets as needed. Groups and group sets are set up and managed on the Peoples tab of your course page. At UCSB, we automatically create a group set titled Section Groups. And this is synced directly from the enrollment data from the registrar. If your course has TAs, you will have a group for each section, and students will populate in those sections based on their gold enrollment. These groups and group set should not be updated manually in Canvas. Rather, they're synced each time we sync with the registrar data and populated based on students' enrollment in gold. Instructors can create other group sets and groups manually using the plus group set button in the top right-hand corner. Once I click on the plus group set button, it'll open up a window here where I'll set my group set name and group structure. For group set name, this is an indicator of what these groups are used for. And so in this case, in my example, I'm going to be creating some lab groups. So I'll go ahead and title these lab groups. Continuing this to fill out this form, I'll have options to indicate if these groups should allow students to sign up themselves. When you allow students to sign up themselves, it allows students to choose which group they're associated with, and they can change groups as well. So keep that in mind. In this case, lab groups, I will be self-assigning students to the groups. They won't be signing up themselves, and so I'll leave this box deselected. For group structure, it'll tell me how do I want to create the groups in this group set. So I can create groups later if I'm not ready to do that right now. But I can also auto-create groups by splitting students up by the number of groups. Say, for example, I have 5 tables. And so I want there to be 5 different groups. If I had 30 students in the class, there would be 6 students per group. If I had 25 students in the class, I would have 5 students per group. But I'm indicating with this option the number of groups that I want Canvas to create. I can also split the number of groups by deciding the number of students I want per group. So say, for example, I want those students to be in groups of exactly 4 students. I don't mind if there's 4 groups or 5 groups or 6 groups. I just want each group to have 4 students. In that case, I would choose to split the number of students per group and indicate 4. In my example, I'll go ahead and I'll split students by the number of groups. I want there to be exactly 3 groups. And so this will then create those 3 groups and allocate students accordingly. There is an option to require group members to be in the same section. And this can be helpful if you have TAs and you want students in these subgroups to also be in the same section, TA section. If that's the case, I would go ahead and select that option. The leadership section of the Create Group Set page allows you to indicate if you'd like to automatically assign a group leader or not. In Canvas, a student group leader can both edit the name of the group and they can also manage the group membership. So they can add students to the group or remove students from their group. This functionality is optional. If you'd like to allow students to be able to be student group leaders and have those functions, you may choose to select it and in fact automatically assign a student group leader as such. And again, that student group leader would then be able to rename the group as well as manage the group membership. Once my form is set, I can go ahead and click Save, and I'll see that my group set was created, my 3 groups were created, and students have been allocated to those groups randomly. If I click on one of the groups, Lab Group 1, I can see the 3 students that are associated with that group, and I can manage it as needed. I can, move students around if I'd like. So say, for example, Anne, I'd actually like her to be in Lab Group 2. I can drag and drop Anne to Lab Group 2. There she is. I can also see any unassigned students on the left-hand side and drag and drop them into the appropriate group that they should be. If I hover to the right-hand side of an individual student, I can remove the student from that group, placing them in the unassigned group. And I can also set group leaders individually. So maybe I didn't want Canvas to automatically set them in the settings when I was setting up the group set, but as the instructor or TA, I'll come in and set up the group leaders manually as needed. I can also edit the group. So if I hover to the right-hand side of a specific group and click ... I can edit that group, allowing me to change the name, as well as setting the group membership limit. Maybe I don't want the group to have more than 4 students ever, for example. I can also add additional groups. Say, for example, I have a new set of students that have entered the class and I need to create an additional group for those students. I can use the plus group button to add a group to this group set. And I'll now see I have that Lab Group 4 down here at the bottom, and no students have yet been allocated to it. A few more options and settings for managing your groups and your group sets. To the right-hand side of the plus group, there is that triple dots that allows you to edit the group. You can edit the group set name. You can change if you want to allow self-signups or not allow self-signups. You do have that option as well after the fact. And finally, just another option that is available for you with groups is the import option. This option allows you to, instead of manually managing the group in Canvas's user interface, you can import them. So if I click plus import, I can download my course roster and enter group names for students in the group name column. So, if you have 150 students, 200 students, rather than going and having to manually manage them, but I don't want Canvas to automatically do it. I want to do it kind of at bulk in a spreadsheet. I can do that, add those names in the group name column, and then re-upload the CSV file. And that'll create the groups and assign students to the groups as indicated by the file. So once these group sets and groups are set up, they're managed, you can now use these group sets in your courses. The first way that groups can be used in a Canvas course is for collaborative workspaces. Each group has a shared workspace. This is a course within a course where members can collaborate. Students can upload files, they can have discussions, and instructors and TAs have access to see the content and the communication from all of the course's groups. So to access these group workspaces, you would do that from the People's tab of the course navigation menu. You'd click on the appropriate group set that you wanted to see. And if you hover to the right of a specific group, just where you would edit the group name, you'll see this option to visit the group homepage. This then takes you to the collaborative workspace, that shared workspace for that specific group. I can filter on the left-hand side between groups within that group set to see each and every group's workspace. Within a workspace, students, TAs, instructors can send group-specific announcements, communications to one another. They can work on content through Canvas pages. They can see the group membership. They can see discussions. They can start discussions to one another. They can upload files and share in collaborations. These group workspaces are great, especially for TAs, to communicate with and share resources with only students in their sections, similar to Gaucho Space's meta or section site functionality. The second way that you can use groups in Canvas is via group assignments. Group assignments allow students to submit one submission on behalf of all group members. To indicate that an assignment is a group assignment, you do that in the assignment settings. So if I click on an assignment and click on the edit button, there is an option midway down the kind of assignment settings to indicate that this is a group assignment. If I select that option, it now indicates that this assignment is to be submitted in groups. By default, when you assign grades, every group member receives the same grade, but there is an option if you want to assign grades to each student individually rather than one grade for the entire group. And then you also indicate what group set this group assignment should be using. So what set of groups should students be submitting in? In this case, it's a group assignment and I want students to submit their project. So I'm going to go ahead and use their project groups and then click save. Finally, there are group discussions. Group discussions allow students to communicate with members in their group. This works well when you want students to interact with only certain subset of the class, not the entire class, about a specific prompt or question. So for example, the most common use case is to set up a group forum for different sections so that Katie's 9 a.m. section, students are collaborating, they're interacting with one another with the other students in Katie's 9 a.m. section. They don't have access to see or interact with students from Stephen's 4 p.m. section. To set up a discussion as a group discussion, again, it would be in the discussion settings, and this is a group discussion, so I'll go ahead and check that box to indicate that I want this to be set up with groups. I'll choose the group set, so the set of groups that I want students to be grouped into. In this case, I want it to be based on their sections, and I can go ahead and click Save. Once I do that, I'll notice as the instructor, I have this blue box at the top that indicates that this is a group discussion and that each group has its own conversation for the topic. And I can quickly jump to the different discussions. So Katie's section, for example, this is their discussion board, and I can use the toggle on the left-hand side also to switch between sections. So that's just some of the ways in which groups can be set up. Group sets can be managed, and groups can be used for collaboration in your Canvas course. If you have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at help@collaborate.ucsb.edu.